Maharaj Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada, Kunki Vaishnavrinda ki, Rankarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki, What's the verse number? 30. 35. 319. 319. 319:35. Really short report, so go on.
Yeah, you can go on.
Okay. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Yogajendram Jasa Grastam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Yanantam Sharanamujam
Yanantam Sharanamujam
Roshantirnam Karinonam
Roshantirnam
Karinonam Mochayat Drutam Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Yanantam Charanamujam
Yanantam Charanamujam
Roshantinam Karinonam
Oshantinam Karenam
Vishranto Mochayat Drutam
Vishyato Amoshayadritam Yogajendram Jashagrastam Dhanantam Charanambujam Groshantinam Karenam Kritshato Amochayadritam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Jnanam
Kosantim Amkare Gunam
Roshantinam Karenam
Mochayadrutam
Kritshato Amochayadritam
Kadana.
I chose.
Okay. Mataji.
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam Dhanantam Charanambujam Kroshantinam Karenam Krishna Amochayadritam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Roshantinam Karenam
One more.
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Yogajendram Jashagrastam
Vayantam Charanam Roshantinam Karenam
Roshantinam
He who Gaja Indram,
Gajendram
the king of elephants, Chasa, alligator,
an alligator
Grastam,
attacked
by Yayantam, meditating upon Chanana, feet, Ambojam, lotus, Kroshatina, while crying, Karenonam, female elephants, Krishtrataha, from danger, Amochayat, Drutam, quickly. Translation: the personality of Godhead, the king of the elephants, who was attacked by an alligator, and who meditated upon the lotus feet of the Lord. At that time, the female elephants who accompanied him were crying, and the Lord saved them from the impending danger. Purport: the example of the elephant in danger who was saved by the Supreme Lord is especially cited here because even if one is an animal, he can approach the personality of Godhead in devotional service. Whereas even a demigod cannot approach the Supreme Person unless he is a devotee. And we'll also read 36. What grateful soul is there who would not render his loving service to such a great master as the personality of Godhead? The Lord can be easily pleased by spotless devotees who resort exclusively to him for protection, though the unrighteous man finds it difficult to propitiate him. Purport. Every living entity, especially persons in the human race, must feel grateful for the benedictions offered by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Anyone, therefore, with a simple heart of gratefulness must be Krishna conscious and offer devotional service to the Lord. Those who are actually thieves and rogues do not recognize or acknowledge the benedictions offered to them by the Supreme Lord, and they cannot render him service. Ungrateful persons are those who do not understand how much benefit they are deriving by the arrangement of the Lord. They enjoy the sunshine and moonshine, and they get water free of charge, yet they do not feel grateful, but simply go on enjoying these gifts of the Lord. Therefore, they must be called thieves and rogues. Prabhupada didn't hesitate using strong language like that. Rascals, thieves, and rogues. Some people didn't like that he was so strong in his language. They criticized him. What kind of, why are you speaking like this, Swamiji? There's this the famous exchange between Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada in a morning walk conversation. Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada, what's the difference between fault finding, calling a spade a spade? We get what the third one was. So then Prabhupada said, calling a spade a spade, if I say you're insignificant, it's calling a spade a spade. Our position is we're very tiny. And fault finding is Prabhupada's explanation where there is no fault finding fault, or making criticism that's undue. Fault finding. And proper discrimination is according to the vision, according to the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, which is Shastra Chakshus, or Jnana Chakshus. When one sees according to, as Krishna sees, this is this mode of nature, that's that mode of nature. Seeing with proper discrimination, that's recommended. So because of his position, as he made this distinction, I can say these things and you cannot, because I'm elderly. And an old person can say things that we can't say. Not just that he was older, but he had the tejas, the spiritual strength, to cut the knot of material affinity, material affection, material attachment. That was his compassion. So it was with compassion that he would speak strongly like that, and consistently strongly like that, for the purpose of freeing souls who are attached to the temporary from that which holds one to the material experience, material existence, and instead to free them for contemplating and entering into the spiritual realm. These two things are required. Affinity for transcendence and detachment from the temporary. So we're somewhere, we have some attraction for transcendence and some affinity for the temporary. That's, in the less perfect or on the path to Krishna. position. There's a mix. And strong language coming from one who we know the purpose of that strong language is compassion. We can hear it and we can't imitate it. So the context here, there's a few things. This is the killing of the demon Hiranyaksha, and it's been narrated and in detail by Maitreya. So Maitreya is speaking to Vidura, and earlier, going back into the earlier parts of this third canto, Vidura meets Maitreya on the recommendation of Krishna that he should go meet Maitreya. And he was told to go meet Maitreya by Uddhava, who said, Krishna said, go send Vidura to meet Maitreya and hear from Maitreya. So under the order of Krishna, Vidura goes and he finds Maitreya and they honor one another. And then he starts asking questions of transcendence, and his first topic of transcendence is creation, interestingly. So the middle parts of Canto 3 is very complicated, very detailed, intricate description of the process of creation. And then shortly after the process of creation, the Swami Manu and the indication that's going to come up shortly. The daughter of Swami Manu, Dekuti, marrying Karnamuni, and that whole section of Bhagavatam. So before that, there's Hiranyaksha, and then later, Canto 7 comes Hiranyakashipu. It's not so that the ordering of topics in the Bhagavatam is sometimes chronological, but not necessarily. It's very logical, but not necessarily chronological. So what we heard from the beginning of creation, the four Kamaras, and the four Kamaras go to the gates of Vaikuntha, and they curse giant Vijay, who then one of them becomes Hiranyaksha. Vijay becomes Hiranyaksha. And the killing of Hiranyaksha by Lord Brahma. And emphasis goes in that narration, consistent with other presentations of the appearance of the Supreme Lord. Emphasis goes to the position of the transcendental nature of Lord Brahma. The transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. Although he may appear however he wants to appear, his form is all spiritual, his activities, his abode, his everything is not of this world. It's fully transcendental. Just reading, mentioned yesterday evening, Canto 10, Chapter 2, Prayers of the Demigods, to Lord Krishna, who was within the womb of Devaki. And there's a really detailed, slow motion description of Janmadivyam, the transcendental appearance of Krishna. And again, emphasis goes, it's transcendent. The form of Krishna is transcendental. The method of the appearance of Krishna is fully transcendental. He just appeared in the mind of Vasudeva. And then he appeared, he was transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki. It's not like he did it, the Lord did it. The Lord did it. And from the pure mind, Vasudeva means in the state of Shuddha Sattva. So the Lord appeared in the Shuddha Sattva mind of Vasudeva, and then he transferred himself, samahita from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind or heart of Devaki. And it's fully transcendental. His form is fully transcendental, and he is fully transcendental. He's of transcendence. Where he is, that place becomes Dhamma. Very clear language. So, why this again and again and again? Because the because is we're used to seeing things. We're conditioned to see things through the lens of our mature conceptions of things. And it's natural that we would do that because we have conceptions and we see through those conceptions. The sensors are here, including the ear, and then we hear. And if the hearing goes to the mind, and the mind, the senses and the mind are materially contaminated. And so we hear and we process in the mind material. And so again and again, not material. And then the positive, fully spiritual. And then different terminology there so that we can understand, yes, fully spiritual. Fully spiritual. This is, how are we going to, jnana vastita, how are we going to fix our mind on transcendence if the conceptions that we hold in our mind are materially colored? Karma kayena sharira bandha. We won't. We'll hear and we'll process material. And therefore, again and again, and again and again. And even the strong language, fools and rascals. Strong language. Not material. So now, having just narrated the appearance of Lord Raha killing Hiranyaksha, just going back a few verses, Vidura is continuing to ask questions. Maitreya, after thus killing the most formidable demon Hiranyaksha, the Supreme Lord Hari, the origin of the Lord species, returned to his own abode, where there is always an uninterrupted festival. Back home, back to Godhead, from where he came. Then, summary, Maitreya, speaking transcendental knowledge to Vidura. I've explained to you the personality God is coming down as the first four incarnation and killing in a great fight a demon of unprecedented prowess, as if he were just a plaything. This has been narrated by me as I heard it from my predecessor, spiritual master. So, let's step back. That's Maitreya speaking to Vidura. And this is being narrated, stepping one more back, is being narrated by Sutta to the sages in Naimisharanya, who heard it from Shukadeva Goswami. So there's layers and layers of the narrators, but it's Purana, and it says disciplic succession Purana. So just going back to get the context. Sutta Goswami said, my dear Brahmana, Sutta speaking to Shaunaka, Vidura, the great devotee of the Lord, achieved transcendental bliss by hearing the narration of pastimes of the personality Godhead from the authoritative source, Maitreya. And he was very pleased. Then, so Sutta is now going to speak something about the importance of hearing messages of transcendence from the right source. Besides, it's very pleasing. He's saying these topics are worthy. The contrast is other topics aren't. The cultivation of Krishna bhakti is we should emphasize as far as possible messages of transcendence. We should emphasize as far as possible hearing messages of transcendence from the proper source, certainly that's facilitated by our founder Acharyas making the Bhagavatam available to us. And Bhagavatam available to us in such a way that we can understand it. Not just because he had good Sanskrit, but the Bhaktivedanta purports help us get and receive understanding of transcendence. Expand that. Middle of this past week, Wednesday, I was at a program with Russian devotees. There's several geographic areas where the Russian devotees in the Chicago suburbs live together and meet together and have their, for some reason they pick Wednesday for their gatherings, the Bhakti Vriksha gatherings, so they can come to the temple on Sunday because it's midweek. In any case, at this program this past Wednesday, I met one man who came up after the discussion. He said, I don't know if you remember me, but you gave me my first Krishna conscious literature. And little description, he, before meeting devotees, he had read the Bhagavatam 5 or 6 times without the purports. Some rendering, who knows where he got it. I don't know if it was in Russian or in English, but 5 or 6 times, full, the entire 18,000 verses, 5 or 6 times. He's a kind of person who likes literatures, and he's from a Jewish background, and so he likes the Kabbalah. Some of you know what the Kabbalah is. Kind of a mysticism from Judaism. And he likes comparing what the Vedas say, what the Kabbalah says, and sees there's lots of homily or similarities. And then he got an invitation to come to the temple. Some friend said, let's go to the temple. Oh, there's a temple. We came to the temple. And that evening, apparently, some 4 years ago, there was a promotion of Krishna book, which turns out to be a commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He had read it 5 or 6 times, but no commentary. And then a little light went out. Oh. Because although the verses are very clear, without proper explanation, the transcendental nature of Lord Varaha, Lord Nrsimhadev, Lord Krishna, etc., the light didn't go on. Although the verses are very clear, similar to Bhagavad Gita, the verses are very clear, but there are persons who comment on the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna disappears. Poof. As a person, he's, without going into what they do, it's a metaphor. This means that. When Krishna says this, it's not important. It's Krishna says it's the message, and the message. This means that Krishna disappears, impersonal. So reading Krishna book, and then now he has in his home the full Srimad Bhagavatam, and he's about to embark on reading the full Srimad Bhagavatam. One time in Bombay, Prabhupada explained, part of the lecture was the turmoil of the age of Kali. Manda samanda mateo, manda bhagya, bad and bad, unfortunate. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has made approach to the person to transcendence so very easy, just by chanting the holy name. And that's all you need is chanting the holy name. Without offense. Small thing, without offense. And then he said, but there are some people that they like to read in. So that's also there. We have so many books. You can spend a whole lifetime and still not finish reading all books. but to speak of understanding them. So either way, and because it's Krishna or Krishna, Krishna the literary form, Krishna in his name form, Nama Rupa, Guna Lila, everything is there in his name. Or together, and recommended actually is together. So how do we get this proper understanding of transcendence? The Bhagavatam is not just interesting stories or allegorical mythology. It's to help us understand some lessons of the values of life that you should live your life by. No. So the Bhaktivedanta purports are there. Therefore, the strong language, because Prabhupada knows the audience. People, they're weak spiritually, and they means attached to the temporary. And so, strong, out of compassion. And some people didn't like it. And some people couldn't understand it. But by continuing to hear, he didn't was strong in all circumstances. We mentioned one yesterday, that meeting of the Mayavad sannyasi, because he kept saying Krishna's name. Krishna, 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 Krishna. The purpose of the acharya is to draw the persons he's interacting with, his audience, or his disciples, or the world, to the shelter of Krishna. And that's what's going on here also with Maitreya speaking to Vidura, and then in turn Sutta speaking to the sages. How wonderful is Krishna? How wonderful is the personality of Godhead? And so these two verses this morning, the personality of God had delivered the king of elephants. So it's a pastime. More detail is presented elsewhere, just alluding to the pastime of the Supreme Lord delivering an elephant. And Prabhupada makes, as in a predictable fashion, even in the body of an animal, the Supreme Lord can deliver. Of course, it was a unique situation. The unique situation was the king of elephants, Gaja Indra, the king of elephants, was previously a great devotee. Somehow he slipped on a banana peel and crashed. He made an apparent offense to a sage, although it really wasn't. So he was cursed to become an elephant, a dull animal, dull and slow animal. But by the Supreme Lord's arrangement, he was put into difficulty and took full, complete shelter of the personality of God, who then from within the core of Vijendra's heart reminded him of prayers that he had recited as a devotee, and very, very feelingly, like as if his life depended on it, because it did, that feelingly, he recited these stotras. Took full shelter of the personality God who came and saved him. So, therefore, if he even saves an elephant, then what to speak of us? But the emphasis of the second verse, text 36, is the feeling of gratitude. Very important. Triple. Very, very, very important. Feelings of gratitude. It's a not only a quality of goodness, it's a doorway into transcendence. Gratitude is the seed of love. And everyone is supplied with everything in need. And to the supplier, there should be gratitude. Something like children are perpetual objects of need. They need affection, they need attention, they need this, they need that. And the loving parent is happy to be the loving parent and supply this and that and the other thing without even being asked. Asked or not asked, they're happy. And the child, generally speaking, is just taking and taking, maybe saying thank you, maybe not. But feelings of gratitude, that's a whole other thing. And when feelings of gratitude are there, that's the seed of love. And same with living entities. All living entities are receiving everything. It's directly stated in Iskcon. The Isha is supplying to all living entities, or the personality of Godhead, Nityo Nityanam. I'd like to quote this. It's in part because it's Upanishadic. Who can refute the Upanishad? Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahonam Yo Vididati Kama. The one is supplying the necessities of the many. Eko and Bahu. One is supplying the necessities of the many. And so it's natural that there should be some gratitude. And when there is gratitude, then love. And when there's love, not out of duty only, but out of love, then there's some service. And so back to what Sutta is saying, hearing these topics help one to get a sense of gratitude. And the person unto whom those feelings of gratitude should be reposed. Not, for example, not just upon the mother and father that supply the necessities of the child, or the demigods who supply the necessities of rain and health and wealth and whatever else one wants. But the cause of all causes, the supplier of all things. There's nothing wrong with feeling gratitude towards mother and father, or gratitude towards those who are supplying universal requirements. Nothing wrong with that. It's nice, be nice. It should be there. Worship goes to the personality of Godhead. Ultimate gratitude is He who is the source of everything. And hearing these topics, Bhagavatams, we're hearing. The structure of the Bhagavatam is such that those feelings of gratitude towards transcendence, towards the Supreme Person, are stimulated by these topics. That's exactly the intention of the author or compiler of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasa, to attract the hearts and minds of the souls of this age of Kali to transcendence, to the Supreme Person of love and gratitude. And the commentator, Srila Prabhupada, and the predecessor acharyas do the same, to assist the audience, us, to feel feelings of gratitude, rather than just be complacent, dull, ungrateful, greedy. Whatever we have is not enough, and need to engage in further activity to get more. And the whole program of ignorance. The Bhagavatam is there to relieve the people of this age of Kali of their condition, the misfortune, manda, the misfortune of this age of Kali. And the potency is there. And our disciplic succession wanted to give that knowledge. They made elaborate commentary. Prabhupada made it available and abundantly distributed through the Hare Krishna movement, the book distribution effort to give relief to the conditioned souls. I was at a home program last weekend, and one mother who has two daughters, and both daughters are now married, and they have now grandchildren. She was in this anxiety state about what to do about terrorism and gun violence, and what to do. She was concerned that her daughters were well educated and involved in education, and they're teachers of medicine. They're medical doctors and teachers of medicine, learning institutions. So, what do they call it? The people that come in, rapid fire shooting in some college or university or school. There's some term for it these days. So, my daughter has made me difficult. So what to do to stop these people? Not just about gun control. Doesn't mean that shouldn't be done. But the modes of nature are such that violence is going to come out in some other way. If they check it over here, it's going to come out over there. If they check it over there, it's going to come out some other place. Because violence breeds violence. It's the modes of nature, ignorance and passion, big time. Big time. The culture that we're in is horrible. Very violent culture. Without detailing, because we all know it too well. Animal slaughter. I mean, next time you go for a ride, just look at the places that are popping up all over the place. Animal slaughter and alcohol. Because after the animal slaughter, eating meat and alcohol. And so many problems, so much violence. Where do you expect that violence to go? Gun control is going to stop it? No way. What to do? The direction of society has to change. Otherwise, it's going to continue and get worse because ignorance breeds ignorance. Here's a visual picture. Supposing we have a big bucket or a bath, big container of white paint, and we're stirring it. And you take just an eyedropper of red and an eyedropper of dark blue and squirt it into the white bucket or the vat, keep stirring it. It's now off-white. Mostly white, but still off-white. And the nature of the modes of ignorance and passion is doesn't just stop there. It breeds a reaction. From that action of passion and action of ignorance, it breeds further passion and ignorance. Keep stirring. And it gets darker and less white and darker and darker and darker. Which is going to prevail, the white or the darkness? Keep going. As Kali Yuga progresses, unless the brake pedal on the deterioration of society through the modes of nature takes place, laws aren't going to stop it. It can give punishment to those who misbehave, but it's not going to stop the modes of nature. So it's not don't do the right thing from a government level. That's not going to stop it. It's going to come out some other way and come out some other way and come out some other way because the modes of nature prevail. And ignorance breeds ignorance, and passion breeds passion, which is ignorance. So that's the Bhagavatam question. That was Vyasadev's perplexity, described in the beginning of Canto 1, Chapter 5. He saw into the future, Kali Yuga in it, because you could see past, present, future. He looked into the future. Yikes. What to do? Same question. Answer. Provide a sound vibration that can elevate society from the lower modes to higher modes and ultimately to transcendence. And that's what the Bhagavatam is. It's a literature meant for awakening attraction to transcendence. And so within the message, again and again and again, transcendence. And it's not look through the lens of Shuddha Sattva, not through the lens of the material conceptions that are rooted in ignorance. We're going to evaluate even the Bhagavatam according to our conceptions. It's just, we can't help it. Therefore, again and again, to help us, no, not through the material lens, through the spiritual lens. Get a new lens. What does that new lens look like? Here's what it looks like. And then, fools and rascals. Prabhupada, strong language. Oh. Again and again. We don't want to be in the fools and rascals category. We want to be in the good category. But beyond good is transcendence. The Bhagavatam is drawing us to transcendence. By that method, the lower modes of nature influence diminishes. Just one last thing. I gave an assignment to a high school student and to a college student, kind of like see what they could come up with. Why is it important to control the tongue through the medium of taking Krishna Prasadam, as opposed to just controlling the tongue? So the tongue is the main sense. In short, the tongue is the main sense. If you can control the tongue, you can control the other senses. The tongue has these two functions, tasting, vibrating. And controlling the tongue is not just, eat vegetarian or eat vegan. It's prasadam, because transcendence can then, through controlling the tongue towards transcendence, taking only Krishna Prasadam and speaking sound vibrations that are transcendental. And the other senses can be controlled, and the personality of God can be understood. It's a key verse of Rupa Goswami. Atakshi Krishna Namadi Labhavet Prayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhi Jivadao Sevan Mukhi Jivadao Swayameva Sparatyada. You can begin to understand Krishna when the senses are controlled. Conversely, you can't even begin to understand Krishna when the senses are not controlled. And the senses being controlled begins with controlling the tongue. And the tongue has these two functions. So the assignment was, why is it important to take prasadam? As a means of controlling the senses. So the first report came back. Wow, taking this assignment, I learned so many things, and because of my situation with my education, etc., I have become accustomed to eating other places besides Krishna Prasadam. And now the light's on, and I understand it's not just being vegetarian. Because there are statements in the scripture. Consciousness is transferred to the act of cooking. So you eat foods that are cooked, and you're taking on the consciousness of the cook. That's why the cooking is to be done by brahmanas before it's offered to the deity. It's offered by the brahmanas. We take Krishna Prasadam. That's, for deity worship, minimum standard. Prabhupada told the story, very interesting. In Calcutta, during the British occupancy, Calcutta was their favorite place, the British favorite place, because the weather and things. So, although Delhi was the capital historically, they liked Calcutta. So they, set up their headquarters. I don't know if I'm saying it properly, but this is my understanding. And then Prabhupada said that because they had these big palatial homes, they wanted a guard that they could trust, and so they engaged brahmanas to be the guard for their palatial home, because they could trust them. And then Prabhupada said the brahmanas brought for their home a tiffin, and during the lunchtime, they didn't even bring prasada from home cooked by their wives. They cooked for themselves. Because the strict brahmana will only take food that's been prepared and offered. Strict during the British occupancy time. It was an interesting message. So they, had to, by the gate, they would set up a little place where they would do some cooking and bring their shila and make their offering to their shila and have their lunch that way. Because then it was fresh and prepared by a brahmana. That's how they sustained themselves. And although the British didn't understand it, they seemed to respect it. These persons are strict with their tongue. And as a result, their consciousness was elevated. There was clarity. And the mode of goodness was preserved. Instead of, now I'm the gatekeeper of this wealthy person and I can steal because I have access to the wealth of this wealthy person or aristocratic person. I can get favors from them. So they just stayed away from all of that. The modes of nature weren't affecting them because of this one thing controlling at the top. So this one student did this project, said, the lights on. Now I understand better how important it is to not eat out, even if it's vegetarian. And in particular, no GMO foods and no this and that. But that's not sufficient. It's not about health, because health is something that's popular out there. For the devotee wants to be in Krishna's association more, make that spiritual connection stronger and stronger and stronger. And so, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, vibrating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, discussing the topics of the Bhagavatam, and being a little strict with what we eat and what manner the food is prepared and offered to Krishna and so forth. It's all part of the same package of coming out of the darkness of the age of Kali influences. In general, people are innocent, but the age of Kali isn't. And that innocence can be protected by making proper choices, what we hear and how we engage our tongues. Proper sound vibration, what we hear, the source that we hear it from. And as we're hearing, Vidura is feeling joyful, transcendental joyful. And then Maitreya is saying, Sutta is saying, who would not? The Lord is so merciful, even Gajendra delivered. So what to speak in this human form of life? It's a pause in the narration to just appreciate sound vibration of transcendence and how it's beneficial to bring the soul to where we want to go. And not simply stay here struggling back and forth with the mind and the modes of nature and the influences of our past deeds, and just continue and continue. There are forces that hold us to material existence, even we're devotees. they need that those forces need to be confronted by the power of bhakti, not, you know, struggle against the modes of nature, you're going to lose because they're under Krishna's control. But take shelter of Krishna, then you can cross beyond. That's our message, Bhagavatam's message. Any discussion?
Shiva, excuse me, you mentioned Shiva a second ago with the Brahmins guarding the gates of love, that they were looking for Shiva, did you say?
No. Shila.
Oh, Shiva.
Shalagram, just like on the altar, Shalagram, Shila.
Oh, okay.
So there's a custom that on a cloth bag or little pouch hanging from their neck, they would sometimes go from home to the place where they were engaged and worship their Shalagram Shila by making an offering to them. Shalagram Shila.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Shila Prabhupada.